Okay, Michael J here. How's everybody doing? Okay, we are continuing now with part 3. Yes, this is part 3 of the continuing saga of World of Warships, the debacle known as the player base disappearing. And it's a mystery. Nobody seems to be able to put their finger on this situation. And it's a mystery. To the point we've had to hire maybe a private detective, or we'll have to hire a private detective to actually get to the root of the problem here. But nonetheless, we together will try and sort this out. Now, I'm going to go to my favorite school teacher. Did I say that? Only school teacher that I'm aware of in the United States of America, otherwise known as the USA. And he frequently posts under the name of Sea Lord Mountbatten. So a pseudonym known as Sea Lord Mountbatten. So let's see what this gentleman has to say. And on with the show we must go. Yikes.
Good people of YouTube, Mountbatten here. And today, if you have been perusing YouTube, forums, or Reddit, you've probably seen this graph show up a few times.
Oh, crap. You've seen this graph because I've posted it. So here we are, Wednesday. It's now May 24th. This is video 3 in our series about this same topic. So his video this morning, a couple hours ago, World of Warships, 50% of the player base gone in just a year? Question marks, exclamation marks. Okay, so there you go. Here's how we lead into this.
This graph is a number of active players each month for the EU server. Now, if you take a look at it, you'll notice that there's a very sharp downward trajectory of this graph. And yeah,
brilliant.
It does most certainly look like there's a lot of people that are just
my eyesight's not totally failing me.
And because of that, it's being held by those players that, of course, believe that assumption that, hey, look, Wargaming's choices are terrible, players leaving the game in droves, and that, you know, there's no coming back, Wargaming's killed the game, it's a dead and dying game, yada, 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 so forth, and so on. But, wait.
Okay, and part of the point of doing this, folks, is that we want to point out to you that sometimes you just can't listen to everything you hear. With the understanding that 95% of what you do, what you think, is autopilot. And you don't realize it. So you're taking in this stuff. And is it the truth? Yesterday's truth, today's truth, is it tomorrow's truth? So is there a truth that stands the test of time that is the eternal truth, or is this a truth that's goalposts are always moving?
Where
that's what you need to ask.
Did this graph come from? I certainly got curious about that, especially considering some things that we'll
and he's going to do some investigation and research.
So
and where did this graph come from? Oh my!
Did some digging. So this graph this graph didn't actually appear anywhere dangerous at first, but
yikes!
It was posted as
part
maybe
onto something. You never know. Use your own discernment.
Data set or some stats that this fella corralled up using the API. And he originally posted not this graph, rather a graph that was discussing the trend of more dedicated veteran players, higher skilled players leaving the game in large numbers. And that is a trend I do agree with, and I 100% agree with him on that, and we'll talk about why again here in a bit. But in this was, of course, this graph as well. Now, in this whole set, which I will again link in the description down below, this graph appeared, and this is the EU server, average players per month, well, number of active players each month. So, of course, I mean, when Reddit gets a hold of something that makes the game look negative in any light, it's going to, of course, get spread like wildfire. Now, where is this coming from? Again, he's using the public API. Why does he have to use that and not, like, stats from Wargaming? Well, you see, Wargaming doesn't really have any official player count stats, at least
player count stats. And Wargaming has a credibility issue. And that's the number one reason. Wargaming has a credibility issue based on actual experience.
It's nothing like this. You can see how many people are in game. It's displayed in port or in battle. If you slap the escape button, it brings up the menu, and in the upper left hand corner it'll show you the total number of players on at that moment. And in port, it's either displayed in the upper left hand corner all the time, or again you slap escape and it comes up with the menu and it's in the upper left hand corner. That's about all you get from Wargaming. So if you want to get an idea of, you know, an overall summary of how many players are on, or what are the trends with the player numbers, you got to go to third-party sources.
No shit,
Sherlock. This is
Sherlock.
most certainly what this is. Now, this is just him doing this, to the best of my knowledge, of what he's posted on Reddit and such, indicating that this is something that he himself is working on. And we'll get to what he has to say again here in a minute. Now, is there any way we can verify this? Yeah, there is. There are a couple of sources that have been used since time immemorial in regards to Wargaming. I'm sorry, World of Warships lifespan at least. That have always been used to discuss the player numbers. There's two main sources. The first one is, of course, Steam charts. Now, Steam charts, a very small percentage of the player base has the game downloaded on.
Hold on. Okay, so just so you guys know, historically this game came out in 2015, and then console version was put on Steam in 2017, third quarter 2017.
Steam, because, well, the game came out in its launcher by itself, and then it was later added to Steam. However long ago it was added to Steam.
There you go.
So a very small number of players actually play it on Steam, but you can still see the general trends with the player base from the Steam charts. Does the Steam chart show this massive drop in players? No, it doesn't. There's a...
Okay, now here's the number one lesson. What he's using from here is 2021 to 2023. It's not the overall data, it's just a subset of a full set, and it's only for the Steam console. And understand that console players are usually demographically younger and more into gameplay, video games. So let's make sure the demographics are understood, and that Steam is just a subset of what should be considered a full set, and by no means comparable to the overall player base, unless we have all the data to state that as a de facto standard. So this is just an outlier. He's creating a subjective and arbitrary assessment based on a subset and not the full set. So let's make sure this is understood. And this is why I have some issues with school teachers. Guy's a great guy, I'm sure. Wonderful guy. But this is a perfect example of people, you got to use your own discernment, take things in, and learn to ask the right questions.
They're dropping players right now, and we'll get to that in a minute, but it's fairly minuscule. As far as Steam goes, there's typically about 14 to 12,000 players online depending upon what part of the year that you're in. Right now, for the summer months, it's about 12 to 11,000. And sure enough, right now, there's about 12,000 players on Steam playing World Warships, at least at the peak for the 24 hours. For the month. So,
hold on. Where does he get this bullshit from? We're looking at something that goes to April 2023. And if you look at it here, August 2021, July 2021, and June 2021, it's 7,400, 6,900, 7,500. Summer months in 2022, like 8,300, 76, 7,500. Like, give us a break. Right there, you're friggin' spewing nonsense. We still love you there, Sea Lord Mountbatten, but you're spewing nonsense. And got a subscriber base of 45.9 thousand. That's almost 46,000 subscribers. They're going to friggin' eat up this crap. Not all of them, but some of them are going to say, I know the truth. I got it from a reputable source. Well, guess what, folks? That ain't the case. Okay.
So, that's about right. And keep in mind, too, that this original graph is showing that from just 1 year ago, in March of last year, to where this chart goes, because this chart just goes to March of 2023, which it says right now there's 440,000-ish active players in World of Warships per month. If we go to a year ago, it says there was, at that time in 2022, 817,000 active players. So a 50% drop in...
Yeah, you got to remember, this is the EU server. And this is... Understand that historically, since this game came into play, from its inception, the EU service or server has had the higher or the highest player use out of all these servers: North America, Russia, Asia, EU. EU consistently has been the highest used server out of all the servers, and this is why this data is scraped from there.
1 year. That's not reflected on the Steam charts, which again, even though it's a smaller sample size, there should be a pretty significant drop of players from a year ago, but there's not. Okay, what's the second source that we can try to check this out with? Well, that is the good old stats page, which linked to this, and the Steam charts is linked down below. So, do we see a massive drop in the player count for the European server in the Steam, sorry, not the Steam, in the stats site? Again, no, we don't see that. Again, this chart is asserting that there is a 50% drop in the amount of active players from 1 year ago to 2 months ago. Do we see that? No. It's about where it should be. So...
Chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. So... we got to ask the question, well, who's supplying this data? Is this wargaming? Because as we had seen, one of the wargaming employees, Askance, yesterday, plotted a very similar type of chart. And it was based on what he classified as the MAU, monthly average user. So what was the y-axis frame to compile the data? What was the y-axis framework in order to compile that data? Based on one game played, one random game, whether it be co-op, clan battles, or ops, just based on one game a month per user. So that was really not indicative of the overall picture. it can skew it if you're not aware of what the data was based upon. So this is why it's dangerous for some people to rehash things.
And keep in mind too, for this site, this is the showing us the daily count of players, not the average monthly count. But still, if you have half of your players logging in every month, you're going to see a massive drop in the daily players. You should.
Oh.
I mean, that's... If
Oh, yeah, I'm just looking now here at the corner. So if you look down here, stats.wotapi.ru. Well, RU is a Russian. So here we've got a Russian-based stat. And anything coming out of Russia, you've got to question, folks. Stats.wotapi, W-O-T-A-P-I.ru. RU is the moniker for Russia. Oh, my.
If you have half the players not logging in anymore every month, you should most certainly see that here. So just using these two, also third-party API-based site. Well, Steam's not really API-based, but this is an API-based site.
Okay, I've had enough of this crap. Okay, so let's move on. Let's provide some more data. Got to try and make this quick. Yikes. Can I make this quick? Good question. So one of the guys that would know a little bit about this would be a guy by the name of Raptor. He's got 8.8 thousand subscribers, a lot less. But what you need to know about Raptor is he's the guy that created KOTS, K-O-T-S, King of the Seas tournament. So he created the tournament, and then subsequently Wargaming wanted to take over the tournament, so he did a deal where they took over that tournament about a year or two ago. So this is Raptor, and I think he has a bit better understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. So nonetheless, let's switch over to him. See what he's got to say. Yikes.
Are reflective of what has been coming out of St. Petersburg, what the dev team has been doing. I think...
Okay, so what you have to understand is on this chart, North America server red, EU server is yellow. As I said, EU server is the highest population. Green's Russia. It's high, down, high, and then back down. And Asia, North America is the bottom. So North America is the bottom.
I think players are, I mean, it's been happening for a while, right? If you go back and you look at, hang on, where's my overall, right? You look at this slide, right? This is global population, right? Of course, COVID high, second quarter 2020, you would hope to maybe retain some of those people. As we get into 21, like, oh, good, things are returning, you know, things are kind of getting back to normal, but no. As we've done more and more sub-testing and super ships and yada, 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 it's just been, I mean, we had a little bit of a recovery back into last year, but now we're on that second quarter cliff again. What we have to keep an eye on is, does this, in third quarter, does this never tick back up? If it ticks back up again, we'll shut up. I can shut up, right? I'll be like, okay. So it's just sort of, we're seeing the expected trend. But if there's a significant...
Okay, so now what you have to understand by this chart is here is back in the beginning. This is back in the beginning. And there was a huge drop. The 2016, I believe. Hard to tell with the thing at the bottom.
Drop from second quarter to third quarter. I think that's a
that would have been 2016 where it really dropped down and came back up.
Video. I'm cautious.
Okay, so this is right from the very beginning, right through to now. So back when the game started, and then 2016, hit a friggin' low, but then came back up, hit another low, sideways, back up, hit another low, started coming back up, dropped again, came right back up. This here is the high, this is COVID. So this is COVID where this trajectory, but if you look at the line here, this is the direction the line's going. If we go from here, this is the friggin' direction it's going, and there you go.
Cautiously optimistic that as we head into third quarter, we're going to see the results of some of the changes of the turnover and leadership of the development team out of St. Petersburg. I really want to believe this. However, no announcement has been made yet that gives me that impression, that gives me the impression that there is change. There is change in the works. There is change coming, right? Every patch notes we've seen, the progression of all the various in-game events have all looked like they have for the last 2 years, right? It's the same formula, right? All we do is we change the ship nation and the ship type. Oh, this month it's American battleship. This month it's Italian destroyer. Next month it's French cruiser. Like it's just one to the next to the next to the next. When are we going to get away from that? Is there going to be something different coming? I don't know. Like I said, I want to believe, but we're still just in the early days of trying.
Okay, so what you have to understand here, this is Sea Raptor's quarterly review, second quarter of 2022. So the end of the second quarter of 2022. Okay? So this is what we're looking at. He's been tracking this for quite some time now. All this data he's been tracking. And he's the guy that started King of the Seas tournament. And he's been a CC of Wargaming for a while now. And if you want to look a little bit further, some of the guys, here's 9 months ago. The chart I would love to see is the average battles played by current players after the CV rework. So many players left the game and have been replaced by new players. And then another guy here said, I have to say, it's by far a very good and absolutely transparent look at the game. Okay, so this gives you a good idea of what's going on here. Okay, so let's go back to the video.
Trying to see if that leadership change is going to make a difference. Anyway, guys, there is our review of the second quarter here in World of Warships. Hope you enjoyed that. Wash your hands.
Okay, so that's the review of the second quarter, 2022. Roger that. So now, what we're going to look at here now is the fourth quarter of 2022. Same guy, Sea Raptor. Let's take a peeky-boo. Peeky-boo. Oh, yeah. Okay, so here we go. So here we have it. Early access to U.S. and German submarines. New Operation Wolfpack. Automatic ASW for aircraft carriers. Halloween operations. Second return of Puerto Rico to the dockyard. Event for the release of a Tier 9 premium European destroyer, the WOWS. And cross-server matchmaking.
Matchmaking algorithms. We're adding super ships, which have to be mirror matched. We're adding submarines, which have mirror matchmaking. It's just, right? It's kind of mind-blowing. And matchmaking, you can tell it is struggling. And so when I read this in the patch notes, I went, aha, I missed this. To me, this is like finding that little nugget of gold in a big giant field because it's important and it tells you something. And this tells me, when I read this note, I thought, this is it. This is Wargaming's acknowledgement.
So this is the fourth quarter 2022 review.
Their realization that the matchmaking algorithm is not going to survive the server populations that they've been seeing lately, and they're trying to take steps to.
Okay, do you hear that? Where actually Wargaming has actually gone on the record, and they've got issues with matchmaking with all the new integrations of the different ship types they've put into game. So understand this. This is very important. And this is why we have such an imbalance in gameplay, and it's a huge problem. And also, we know CVs and subs really are not a good fit to begin with. They haven't done enough proper testing in order to make that happen. But here we were actually getting an acknowledgement, this is the fourth quarter of 2022, that Wargaming has gone on the record stating matchmaking is an issue because of all the new different classes of ships they have, which is the hybrid plane ships, which whether it be battleships or destroyers, the subs, the CVs, and they got issues with this now.
I won't say to fix it, because I'm not sure you can fix server populations, but like to alleviate the impact of it, right? One of the benefits of Warships being a global title is that prime time in the NA server is low time in EU and Asia. Prime time in those servers, prime time in Asia is still probably low time in EU and in NA. The bottom line is that if you try to plot out the rough geographical regions that each server draws their populations from, each of them is staggered about 6 to 8 hours apart around the globe. And trust me, I can speak from experience when I say this. Coordinating players across those kinds of time zones is a massive pain in the ass, because we've been dealing with it for King of the Sea for years. But it affords Wargaming a golden opportunity here. If they can make this work, it should, I'm going to caveat this because I'm not the guy doing it, it should help smooth out some of the ridiculous matchmaking shenanigans we're starting to see as the game suffers a little bit in terms of population. I want to believe that that can happen, so that if you're playing off-peak in Europe, it's peak time in Asia. You're pulling from their 12,000 players versus your 3,000 players, and now all in you've got a pool of 15,000. That's a much more balanced pool to be drawing and generating better matchmaking from. I want to believe that's what this is going. But I had missed this the first time. I feel like that's a really, really important thing for them to test. Of course, back in 11.9, we also added Vallejo to the armory for steel, a ship that's I haven't played very much. I don't even think I've ever tested it. It just looks very underwhelming on paper. And then, of course, we had Patrie and Edgar released into the tech tree for super ships. Edgar being the Super Minotaur, and Patrie being, well, I was going to call her a Super Republique, but honestly, Patrie is really a Super Bourgogne. So that's really how that works. Two quick balance tweaks. Saw some changes to the unique commanders. That's Russia's Kuznetsov and the UK's Cunningham. And then there were some other commander skill changes and tweaks, some minor things, just to kind of balance a few things out that I won't say they mostly went unnoticed, but none of them was particularly egregious or unwelcome in my mind. All right, as we head on into 11.10 in November, of course, we get early access to the Japanese light cruiser line. This line has been a bit of a mixed bag for me, and I had a video earlier this week where I kind of talk about why I feel that way. I'd be curious to see what you guys think of the Japanese light cruisers.
Let's go to the server populations.
So let's have a quick go looking at server numbers. I do this every time. Quick refresher course.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're just going to fast forward to the server populations. This is the last update before now he's going to go into server populations, and this is where this is December 7, 2022, update 11.11. Schroeder's being added in, the renowned 44 Japanese light cruisers, the Trump, which is the destroyer. Don't forget that's a friggin' destroyer with planes as well. So now we got planes on destroyers, we got planes on cruisers, and we've got planes on friggin' battleships. And two more super ships.
What you're seeing is the average number of players logged in per day per server. So literally I'm boiling 90 days of data for any given server, the various low curves. You know, the server population gets very low in the wee hours of the morning and slowly ticks up over the course of the day, usually hits its high in the late evening hours, and then slowly tapers off overnight, and then there's just an up-down cycle. So I'm taking the average, that number of averaged out over 90 days for each server. I'm boiling all that data down to one single number just to give us a general sense of how many people are logging in and playing on a regular basis. All right. So I'm an NA player. Like what we like to do, we like to start with the NA server, and here we are. Let me make a quick update to that. There we go. So last time we were talking about kind of the...
Okay, so this is the North America server that we're interested in. This is the lowest populated server out of them all. And here we've got from the start of the game, 2015, up until the end of 2022 here, beginning of 2023.
You know, the static bit here, you know, between second quarter and third quarter, we had not had a lot of change. You can see here moving into fourth quarter, we did have some change, and it wasn't good change. The NA community, you see it in the forums. In my mind, you see it on Twitter. You see it in the stream comments, right? When people come into the official streams and you pay attention to the comments, have really been, I won't say rejecting, but I'll say disapproving of the direction of the game for, well, quite a while now, haven't they? Right? This has been going on for a while. Fourth quarter wise, and you're going to see this again in a later slide, this is one of the worst fourth quarters that NA has basically ever had.
Okay, so if we look here now, from 2020 when we had the COVID debacle, so here's 2020 to the end of 2022. Just a friggin' slide downward the whole time. Slight uptick here at one point, and that's it.
It's not the worst because the fourth quarter of 15 was actually slightly below this, right? But after 7 years of the game, we're now almost back to where we were population-wise at launch, right? All the effort, all the marketing, all the time, all the money that's been spent, and you can see here, around 7,000 players equates to basically where we were for the first year of the game's life. So I can't say I'm really excited to see that here on the NA server. Now, on EU, things are a little better. They had a nice uptick, right? Things had kind of stagnated over second and third quarter here, and we had a bit of an uptick here in fourth quarter. And that's, again, I won't say fairly typical. Well, I would say fairly typical. That's fairly typical because, again, if you go back and you look at the graph, almost every fourth quarter, there's a nice little uptick on EU as players come back, fourth quarter or first quarter, depending on the timing of the freebies. But players come back and play enough over the holidays to pick up their free loot, their free super crates, which may have ships, which may have steel, whatever, that sort of thing. And so you see that again here on the EU server. So a nice little recovery that gets them, gets their curve, their trend line there a little improved. Things continue to look bad for RU. Again, the broken record. We've hit yet another low. We're now, you know, the glory days.
Okay, as I said, RU. So this is the Russian server, and you notice RU. And all their websites, domains, .ru is from Russia. And you'll notice from the start of the game, Russia server is just going right down the going right into the crapper constantly, nonstop. Peaks up every once in a while. Maybe there's a promotion. I don't know what's going on.
Days of RU, basically, were the first couple of years the game was live. RU more or less seemed to have radically rejected the carrier rework. Very, very low numbers for them at the time over the summer of 19 when that was coming in. Minor recovery here in 2020. But this is interesting, and I'll point this out, right? Almost every other server had big spikes, big population recoveries in second and third quarter of 2020. And Russia didn't. They're the only server that basically didn't have big population spikes over the summer of 2020.
That was COVID.
Population sort of held steady for a while, and now we're back firmly in the down column, yet again hitting a new low. So Again, I mentioned this last video, the game in RU, though we can see this data, is no longer managed directly by Wargaming, just like their deal with the Chinese server. After the Ukrainian invasion, they divested themselves of the Lesta Studios property that they had been running in St. Petersburg, and a whole bunch of people in that office left the country, have been moved elsewhere. I believe most, if not all, the people that were able to get out or wanted to go are now in Belgrade, Serbia. They stood a new office up there. Or in Prague, but I think it's mostly in Serbia because that's where the actual development team ended up. And now what's left of Lesta in St. Petersburg is just like a regional management company, like they manage the server for the game in Russia. Asia, which had been on a nice little uptick, you see there a nice solid downward. But I gotta say, I don't know that I'm super concerned by this, and the reason for that is we saw the exact same trend last year. Something about fourth quarter, the Asia server just doesn't react, doesn't play as much. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's, depending on where you live in that part of the world, it's the one time of year that the weather is not scorching. I don't know. Like, I mean, I can't explain this. I just can't. Maybe if somebody who plays on the SEA server can help me understand why it is that the fourth quarter always seems to be the worst performing for you guys, I would genuinely be curious. I would love to know. But you can see this trend over the last three years, right? Fourth quarter of 20, bam. Nice recovery. Fourth quarter of 21, bam. Nice recovery. Fourth quarter 22, bam. So, like, something about fourth quarter just pisses Asia off. I don't know what it is, but if somebody can help me, I would love to.
I don't know what it is there, Charlie.
And then, of course, the previous, like we do, the preceding 4 slides all here smashed into one, just so you can see the trend lines and each server's kind of ups and.
Okay, so now you can see for 2022, right from the beginning of the game to 2022, the end of 2022, you can see for every server what's going on exactly. So this is the real data. All the other stuff is just hypothetical mumbo-jumbo that is misconstrued in a way to support an arbitrary and subjective assessment of a personal viewpoint. Simple as that. And we can still do that with real data as well, depending how you want to spin it. So that's the fact of the matter, folks. So what are we going to do? Should we send Sea Lord Mountbatten back to Teachers College for a refresher course and upgrade his skills? Let me know in chat. So also let me know in chat, what do you think will help get this game back on track and to where it was before they started bringing in the CV rework and the submarine debacle, hybrids, and everything else? What do you think will help get this game back on track? Thanks for watching. Sending love and peace to everyone. Michael J. over and out. Take care, folks. Love you. Yeah, baby. As Austin Powers said, yeah, baby.